and welcome back to another edition of Cardinal News Update, which is an occasional news update we do with the folks from Cardinal News, which is the region's kind of leading nonprofit news source. And today I'm joined again by Megan Schnabel, who writes a lot about business and the economy in our whole region. Megan, you guys recently, both you as a reporter and Dwayne Yancey as one who writes a lot of editorials for Cardinal News, have focused on a story about the redevelopment of the Roanoke's American Viscose plant, which has the possibility of being a huge deal here. First of all, before we talk about what the city of Roanoke is doing or any incentives, what is the property and what's the significance of that property, which is in Southeast Roanoke City?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for having me. I think this announcement caught a lot of people by surprise. The American Viscose property is about 80 acres at the base of Mill Mountain in Southeast Roanoke. And it was originally developed in the early 1900s. I believe the first building opened in 1917, and it housed the American Viscose Company, which was a British-based rayon manufacturer. And over the years, it became a huge employer in Roanoke. In the late 20s, I think it was, the company employed 5,500 people in Roanoke. So this was a massive campus. People lived on the campus. It was almost a little factory town at the base of Mill Mountain. But over the years, the markets changed. And by the late 50s, the company was in decline. In 1958, it closed the Roanoke factory and pulled out, leaving this huge factory just sitting vacant. A couple of years later, a group of Roanoke businessmen got together with the support of the city and formed a partnership and bought the property. Their idea was to create an industrial park as a way to attract more diverse businesses. They were leery of relying so heavily on a single industry as with viscose. And so their idea was to bring in lots of different businesses to take portions of the facility. And that worked for a long time. They had a lot of tenants in there, a couple of large ones, some small ones, a really interesting mix over the years. But again, markets changed. And in the early part of this century, they lost one of their big tenants. The property continued to age. Again, we're talking about buildings that were a century old. And, the partners were aging as well. Their shares were getting passed down to second and third generation heirs. And it became a lot harder for them to keep it up and to make money off of it. And so just last year, the partnership, I think, came to the conclusion that it was time to sell.
And so that you've talked about who owns it now. Ed Walker, a developer, I will say that I have known Ed for a long time. It's hard not to if you live in Roanoke and are involved in anything. So full disclosure there. And I know he's a supporter of Cardinal News. But for those who don't know, who is Ed and what are some of the projects as a developer that he's done that have impacted Roanoke and the surrounding communities?
Ed Walker, for the past 15 years or so, has been taking on a lot of old buildings around the region and turning them into housing, into mixed-use developments, into commercial developments. If you're around Roanoke anywhere, you've probably seen the Patrick Henry downtown. Took an old hotel and turned it into apartments. The River House in Wasena, which is an apartment complex that also has a restaurant and a climbing gym. The Cotton Mill project in Roanoke, more apartments. He's also done projects in Danville. He's developed one hotel, is working on another hotel there, also redeveloped what is now the new police station there. He did some work up in Buena Vista. Just last fall, he announced that he was going to turn the old Valleydale meat processing plant in Salem into apartments. So he has a fairly long and successful track record around the region in rehabbing old industrial facilities into new uses. And that's one of the reasons that the city was interested in partnering with him on this project.
And I know a lot of there is talk like, well, why don't we just attract more? And Dwayne has written an editorial in today's Cardinal News, the day we're recording this, which is Thursday, the 19th of January, And it's just not really realistic with modern manufacturing. They don't want to rehab an old building because they want a slab and a metal building, and that's what they want. Roanoke City has offered some pretty substantial incentives for this project. They just approved something. What have they offered, and what's in it for the city to offer such a large sum to a private citizen?
The city council on Tuesday night voted unanimously to enter into a performance agreement with Ed Walker. And this will provide a $10 million forgivable loan for the project. In return, Ed Walker had to commit to bringing in investments of $50 million into the site over the next 17 years. There will be a check-in point 12 years down the road, by which point he will have to have made $25 million worth of investment in the site. This is it's a big deal for the city. This isn't a small amount of money. The city is having to take on additional debt to do this. But the way the city sees it, how could they not do this? I think it's a huge piece of land. There was always the chance that it could be subdivided. If the current owners couldn't find a single buyer to take the entire property, this could get divided into multiple pieces, which would make it even harder for the city to have any influence over it. As you pointed out, there's a lot of old cars and other debris on the site. I think the city sees this as important to getting it cleaned up. This is really a gateway into Southeast Roanoke, which is a quadrant of the city that has been getting new focus in recent years. The city has been putting money into building affordable housing. Cardinal Clinic has been really focused on Southeast with wellness efforts. And, I think there's just the sense that this could be a new neighborhood if it's done correctly. If Ed Walker's vision comes to pass, this is a way to redevelop a part of the city without driving out existing tenants. This isn't seen as gentrification. This isn't displacing existing homes to build fancy condos. So I think the city is very attracted to the idea of being able to partner with someone with a track record to turn around a gateway into this part of the city.
Yeah, it feels to me like a nice capstone for Mr. Walker, as well as you look at something that's going to take 17 years, which then takes us through to what 2040, so that's quite a long-term thing. There are some businesses, you mentioned this a little bit, there are some businesses and nonprofits. Part of the industrial park is in pretty good shape, and there's been some significant investment made by the tenants. Do you have any sense, and I know it's very early, but do we have any sense of how this might impact those who are already there?
Walker told us last week that one of the things that attracted him to this site was I think he used the word authenticity. This is a real place. There are real people working there. He told us he does not want to make it precious, was the word he used. He wants viable businesses to stay. He doesn't want piles of junk. He doesn't want lots of rusted out cars and construction equipment. But, he said he admires the work that welders are doing, that furniture refinishers are doing. There's a ballet school in there right now. There's a thriving coffee shop. There's a sports medicine practice. There's indoor soccer fields. And I was really surprised to see just how many thriving businesses are operating in that warren of buildings over there. It seems kind of fortress-like from the outside, but when you get down in there and actually start driving around, you see a lot of activity. And Walker told us that he doesn't want to drive out businesses that want to stay and that want to be part of this redevelopment.
Well, we're going to keep following this. This is exciting for us, as Blue Ridge PBS is located in Roanoke. We're always interested in all things economic development here. And I know that you guys will too. I would encourage people to read Megan's story and the stories that come forth, and also the opinion work that Dwayne Yancey is doing around this. So Megan, as always, a pleasure to have you as my guest, and I look forward to following this along with our viewers. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tom.